Revealed, how one single mother's amazing journey captured the heart of a millionaire CEO. In the heart of Maplewood, where the air was thick with the sweet scent of freshly baked bread, Sarah was a beacon of warmth. At 32, with two little ones depending on her, life had become a series of endless to-do lists and the struggle to keep the lights on. Each morning, she brewed coffee at the diner, the community hub, where laughter mingled with the clinking of plates and the murmur of friendly conversations. She served up comfort in the form of eggs and toast, but behind her bright smile lay a relentless battle against sleepless nights and unending bills. "Sarah, you're a lifesaver," a regular exclaimed, his eyes shining with gratitude as she filled his cup. Every day, she poured not just coffee but her spirit into her work. And though the weight of her responsibilities sometimes left her breathless, she held on to a flicker of hope for a brighter future for her children. On a particular Tuesday, the diner bustled with talk about a charity event happening that evening in town. It was an opportunity for the locals to connect with those from the affluent city nearby. Little did she know, it was also where her life would change forever. James, a charismatic millionaire with charm that drew people in like moths to a flame, strolled into the diner just before the event. He was dressed in a tailored suit, a world apart from the flannel and jeans of her regular patrons. The moment their eyes met, a jolt of recognition traveled between them. It was awkward at first. "I'll have what she's having," he joked, pointing to a neighboring diner's plate. Sarah chuckled, the sound a bright spot amidst the small-town routine. "That'll be one omelette with a side of coffee, then." She asked about his visit, and as he responded, she noticed something shift in his usually polished demeanor. With each conversation, he saw a glimpse of her reality, the joy in her laughter, even when her eyes told stories of worry. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Their laughter filled the diner, but outside, the reality of their lives loomed heavy. Sarah felt the lingering peering eyes of the community, whispering doubts of whether she, a humble waitress, could ever intertwine her life with someone like James. She swallowed her fears, sharing the dreams she had for her kids: a good school, a safe neighborhood, a life free from relentless worrying. And with every word, James was drawn to the fierceness of her spirit, the tenacity in her voice. But just as their connection deepened, an unexpected tragedy struck Maplewood. As the town faced an uncertain crisis, Sarah was thrust into the heart of a dilemma, demanding decisions beyond herself. Would she choose the community she loved or risk the budding relationship that was beginning to take shape with James? Could James step outside the confines of his wealth and privilege to truly understand what it meant to stand by someone in need? With the community watching closely, Sarah stood at a crossroad, balancing the life she fought to build against the shimmering allure of something greater. Would she let this chance slip away, or would she rise to meet the challenge with the same resilience that had defined her every day? As doubt and hope danced in the air, readers were left wondering, in a world so divided, can love truly bridge the gap? The evening was alive with anticipation as the stars twinkled above Maplewood, the glow of the community center exuding warmth and a promise of unity. Sarah stepped into the event, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The preparations for the charity gala had been a whirlwind. She had stitched together a dress she found at a thrift shop, frantically ironed for hours, and made sure her hair was just right. But no matter her efforts, the reality of who she was still pressed against her, like heavy stones in her pockets. As she entered the hall, her senses were overwhelmed. Laughter bubbled from groups chatting animatedly, while the scent of rich foods mingled in the air. She felt out of place among the elegantly dressed crowd. Still, she pushed through, reminding herself of the purpose behind her gathering. This was for her children, for the town, for the hope of better days ahead. "Sarah." A familiar voice drew her from her thoughts. It was Mary, one of her best friends, radiant in a shimmering gown. "You look beautiful." Mary beamed, nudging her forward. "You have to meet some people." "Thanks," but Sarah hesitated. What if they don't want to talk to a waitress? Don't be ridiculous, Mary said, linking her arm with Sarah's. You're so much more than that. With a deep breath, Sarah followed her friend into the main hall. She spotted James on the other side, effortlessly mingling with a crowd of influential local figures. His eyes found her, and for a moment, the noise faded away as they exchanged a smile that was both reassuring and electric. He looked different here, more at ease, but she couldn't help but feel the weight of their differences. Sarah. James called as he made his way through the gathering, leaving behind a circle of admirers. He approached her with genuine enthusiasm, his presence dissipating the tension that clung to her. I was hoping to see you here. Me too, she said, straightening her shoulders, trying to hold on to the confidence Mary had encouraged. As conversations flowed, the atmosphere shifted. James introduced her to various community members. Sarah was surprised at how effortlessly he spoke to them, making them laugh by sharing amusing anecdotes about city life, while she struggled to find her place among the elite. But with each interaction, James' unwavering support worked like a salve for her insecurities. I want to help, he said quietly, as they stepped away from the group. A serious note had crept into his voice. What's happening in Maplewood matters to me. The sincerity in his eyes made Sarah's heart race. You can't just swoop in and save the day, she breathed, feeling a swell of protectiveness for her community. They don't need a millionaire to save them. They need people who understand their struggles. He looked at her, a flicker of understanding passing through his demeanor. Then let me learn. Let me be part of it. She searched his face, desperate to decipher his intentions. Was this a passing interest? Or was there truly a connection between their worlds waiting to be forged? But before she could answer, the room buzzed with energy as the event kicked off. Sarah and James joined the crowd, but Sarah felt that familiar fear creeping back. It wasn't just her own life at stake anymore, it was the community she loved. The night wore on, and with every testimony shared about the town's trials, her resolve strengthened. So many supported each other. Could she really let herself lean on James, trust him to grasp the essence of her world? As the evening faded, Sarah stepped outside for fresh air, the cool breeze laced with the promise of change. But just as she started to breathe easier, a commotion erupted inside. The doors swung wide, and a frantic voice called out for help. Someone's collapsed. Fear rippled through the crowd as panic set in. Who could be hurt? Sarah's heart dropped. This moment could reshape everything she hoped for, bringing her closer to James or pushing him away forever. Would they face this crisis together, or would it draw them apart in ways she couldn't foresee? As the mystery unspooled in front of her, Sarah felt her resolve shaken. Could love survive in the midst of chaos? The night took on an entirely different color as Sarah's heart raced in her chest. The noise inside the community center grew louder, filled with anxious voices and hurried footsteps. Without thinking, she sprinted back into the hall, her legs propelled by urgency. James was already there, his face a mask of concern as he pushed his way through the throng of confused guests. The crowd parted for him, revealing a small cluster of people gathered around the base of the stage. Sarah's stomach twisted at the sight, and as she got closer, she recognized the familiar, frail figure of Mrs. Henderson, the elderly woman who had offered her children sweet lemonade on hot summer days. Mrs. Henderson. Sarah gasped, rushing forward. The woman lay on the ground, her breathing shallow, cheeks pale against the vibrant fabric of the gala decor. Two attendees were crouched beside her, trying to provide comfort, but their tears told a different story. James stepped beside Sarah, placing a steadying hand on her back. We need to call an ambulance, he said, his voice calm yet urgent. I already did. Shouted Mary from the edge of the circle, her eyes wide. They're on their way. Sarah knelt down, wishing she could do something to help. Mrs. Henderson, it's Sarah. I'm here. She reached for the woman's hand, the warmth of it grounding her even amid the chaos. You're going to be okay. Help is coming. But Mrs. Henderson's eyes fluttered open just a fraction. I'm fine, just a little dizzy, she murmured, her voice weak but still resilient. It was that spirit of defiance that Sarah loved most about the older woman. "No, you need to lay still," Sarah soothed, squeezing her hand protectively. "You need to rest. Just focus on us." James knelt on the other side, creating a small barrier of support. He looked between Sarah and Mrs. Henderson, his brow furrowing with concern. "You're not fine," he said gently, giving Sarah a glance that conveyed both worry and admiration. In that moment, everything came into sharp focus for Sarah. She realized that the world they lived in, with all its class differences, was insignificant compared to the fragility of life. She saw James, not as a wealthy outsider, but as a partner, a man willing to stand beside her through the hard realities. As the sirens echoed in the distance, the crowd began to quiet. Everyone was bound by their fear, but in that moment between fear and hope, Sarah felt more connected to James than ever before. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. What if things don't change? What if we can't fix this?" His eyes softened, unwavering. "We can't control everything, Sarah," he replied. "But we can be there for each other, for the people who matter. You don't have to shoulder this burden alone." Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, the world around them faded. The panic of the crowd, the uncertainty of the night, all slowed down. In James, she found a flicker of something she desperately needed: hope. Suddenly, the ambulance arrived, blue lights flashing as paramedics rushed in. Sarah's heart sank with the reality that this night had changed everything. It was now more than a fundraiser, it was about community, connection, and survival. As they helped carry Mrs. Henderson onto the stretcher, Sarah felt as if the weight of her earlier fears began to lift. Struggling relationships were real, but so was the love and resilience that thrived in her town. When James reached out, taking her hand firmly, a surge of energy sparked between them. "You ready to face this?" he asked softly. As she nodded, a determination ignited in her chest. But just as they turned away from the scene, another commotion erupted nearby. The crowd gasped, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. What now? In that moment of dread, she sensed something bigger was on the horizon. Was this merely the beginning of something more profound? Or would the challenges they faced tear them apart in unexpected ways? As the uncertainty loomed above them, Sarah could only brace for what was to come. The crowd buzzed again, a mix of gasps and whispers slicing through the air like a knife. Sarah's heart raced as she turned instinctively toward the commotion. Her breath hitched as she saw Dagny, a local journalist known for her fierce tenacity, standing at the center of the new chaos. She held her phone high, recording a live segment, her face alight with the thrill of the unfolding story. "Something's happening with the mayor," Dagny shouted, her voice rising over the crowd. "He's just arrived, and it looks like he's..." Sarah couldn't make out the rest. She felt the pull of curiosity but also a pang of dread. The mayor had been present earlier, mingling with the people, flaunting a smile that seemed more like a mask. If there was more to this, Sarah had to know. James sensed her unease, and without hesitating, he grasped her hand tighter. "Let us go," he urged. They pushed their way through the throng, the body heat and anxiety only amplifying the tension in the air. As they neared the stage, Sarah noticed the mood shift among the crowd. Confusion transformed into a cocktail of excitement and anger. The mayor's face, usually so composed, now twisted with alarm. He was trying to speak, but the layers of murmurs drowned him out. "Ladies and gentlemen, please," he implored, raising his hands, but it only incited louder shouts from the audience. "What is going on?" Sarah whispered to James, sensing his own concern mirrored in her eyes. "Let us find out," he replied, determination etched on his face. Once closer, they overheard snippets of conversation, something about funds mismanaged, about an investment that had gone awry. Mrs. Henderson had poured everything she had saved into a community program that, unbeknownst to many, was now at risk due to the mayor's endorsement of a shady deal. Sarah felt bile rise in her throat. How could this happen? It was a betrayal to everyone, especially the people who had trusted him, including Mrs. Henderson. Just the thought of that sweet lady losing everything pushed her fury over the edge. "Everyone deserves a chance. Dagny shouted, her voice barely disguising the fire behind it. People like Mrs. Henderson fought to build this community. Are we going to let corruption tear it down? Sarah looked at James, the weight of her emotions reflected back at her. In that messy moment, she felt the deep connections that wove them all together. It wasn't just about Mrs. Henderson anymore, it was about everyone who had risked their lives, dreams, and money to make the community thrive. As Dagny continued to press the mayor, Sarah knew they had to act. But how could they stand up to someone so powerful? Their voices were just a whisper against the shouts of authority, but the fight inside her ignited. James, she whispered fiercely, adrenaline pumping through her veins. We can't let them take this away from us. We have to find a way to help, to fight back. We need to gather support. His gaze turned earnest, a spark of determination igniting within his blue eyes. We'll make sure they hear us, he assured her, gripping her hands. But as they pulled away from the crowd, Sarah caught a glimpse of the mayor's face again. His expression was shifting, fear mixed with desperation. Did he know his time was running out? And then it hit her. This was no longer just about defending the community and helping others, it was also about exposing the truth. What if we have something that can turn the tide? She wondered aloud, turning to James, who was already piecing it together. Suddenly, a voice cut through the chaos. A young girl stepped forward, holding a sheet of paper. Her voice trembled but carried a weight that silenced the crowd. I know what happened, she declared, eyes shining with bravery. Sarah's heart raced again as a chill crept down her spine. What did the girl know? Would this revelation help or complicate matters even further? In that moment, uncertainty clouded the air again. With the stakes higher than ever, Sarah braced herself for whatever might come next. Was this little girl about to expose a truth that could change everything? Or would this only add to the chaos already unraveling? The silence after the girl's announcement was deafening. Sarah could almost hear her own heartbeat, a drum of anticipation pulsing in her ears. The crowd shifted restlessly, eager for clarity, but it hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Who are you? Dagny asked, stepping forward to give the girl an encouraging nod. What do you know? The girl, no older than 12, took a deep breath. Her hands trembled slightly, but she didn't back down. I saw something last week when my mom took me to the city hall. The mayor was meeting with some men. They looked worried. I overheard them talking about Mrs. Henderson's program, how they were going to cut the funding if she didn't agree to their terms. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave crashing against a shore. Sarah's stomach fell further. How deep was this corruption running? I thought it was wrong, the girl continued, her voice stronger now. So I wrote it down. She unfolded the paper in her hands, revealing a hastily scrawled note. I can show you what I heard. They were saying if Mrs. Henderson didn't back off, she wouldn't see her money again. The mayor's face drained of color as he shifted on his feet. That's not true. He shouted, desperation creeping into his tone. She misunderstood. This is all a misunderstanding. But as the girl read from her note, naming the men and their shady intentions, the crowd began to stir, anger tinging the air. Sarah felt the fire rising within her once more, fueled by this brave girl's bravery. See, they were in the back room. The girl emphasized, desperation creeping into her voice. They were laughing about taking everything away from people who were counting on them. James leaned closer to Sarah, his low voice barely audible over the murmurs. This could change everything. We have to get this girl somewhere safe, and make sure her story gets out. But would they have enough time? The atmosphere crackled with tension, uncertainty permeating the air. Would the crowd rally behind the truth, or would they be too afraid to confront the powerful? Suddenly, Dagny turned to the crowd, urgency lighting her eyes. Do you know what this means? We cannot let this happen. Together we can stand up and make them listen. The momentum in her voice began to warm the cold edges of fear in the crowd. Heads turned, voices began to rise in agreement. As the crowd rallied with Dagny's passionate call, Sarah sensed the change in the air. There was something electric about their collective anger, hope igniting a spark of defiance. With the girl by her side, Sarah felt the determination settle into her bones. They could do this. They had the power of the people behind them. It was now or never. "Let us put the truth on the table," Sarah shouted, her voice ringing out stronger than she thought possible. "Let us show them we won." Be pushed around. As the crowd erupted into chants of support, Sarah could hardly breathe, the energy swelling around her. They were ready for a fight, but just as hope surged, a siren pierced through the air, loud and threatening. Police cars screeched to a halt nearby, lights flashing. Officers jumped out, stern faces steeling for action. The crowd began to shift uneasily, the momentum faltering as fear crept back in. "Do we back down now?" James asked, his grip tightening on her hand. "No," Sarah replied emphatically. "We keep going." But how would they stand against the law when it seemed aligned with the very corruption they sought to expose? The sound of footsteps drew closer, and Sarah's heart sank. Did they have the courage to face what was coming? Or would the truth be silenced again? The officers spread out, scanning the crowd with piercing eyes. The tension twisted in Sarah's gut as she locked eyes with one of them, a stout figure with a grim expression that promised no mercy. "Everyone stay calm," the officer barked, his voice cutting through the chants. "You need to disperse immediately. This is an unlawful gathering." A wave of panic washed over the crowd, heads turning and bodies shuffling back. But Dagny stepped forward, the flicker of defiance still strong in her. "We have the right to be here. We're standing up for what's right." Her voice held the conviction of the many hearts behind her. "Save it for the judge." The officer snapped, stepping closer, his hand resting on the baton at his side. "You're trying to obstruct justice. You need to leave." Around them, Sarah sensed the crowd wavering, but she took a step forward, a surge of determination overriding her fear. "We are not leaving. Not when we have a chance to fight for our community." James squeezed her hand tighter, his brow furrowed but eyes glistening with a shared resolve. "They can't silence us," he whispered fiercely, keeping his gaze on the officer. "Not anymore." The girl beside Sarah clutched her note close to her chest, her wide eyes reflecting both fear and hope. She was trembling harder now, but something within Sarah sparked anew. "You all heard her," Sarah called out, the words flowing like a river beneath her. "This isn't just about Mrs. Henderson. This is about all of us. We're stronger together, greater than fear." As her voice resonated through the gathering, murmurs of support swelled around her, rising like the tide. The officer's brow creased, hesitating as he glanced around, reading the resolve in their faces. "Everyone!" Dagny shouted, her energy contagious as she raised her hands. "If we stand together, they cannot silence us. This girl's bravery calls us to action." A low rumble of agreement whispered through the crowd, swelling into fierce chants. "We want back down. We want the truth." Ignoring the officer's orders, more people stepped forward, standing shoulder to shoulder, a wall of solidarity forming in front of Sarah. She could feel her chest swell with warmth, a mix of excitement and disbelief. Could this really be happening? But just then, another officer stepped up, his expression betraying the dread of what might escalate. "I'm warning you. Everyone is to leave, or you will be arrested." The blatant threat hung in the air, and a collective intake of breath rippled through the crowd. But Sarah sensed something shift. It wasn't just her own courage, it was a flicker within others too. They had a choice now, standing on the cusp of truth and fear. "Let them arrest us," someone yelled from the back, igniting a fresh wave of defiance. "We'll show them. We won't be afraid anymore. Yeah. We have rights." Another voice shouted, rallying support that swept through like wildfire. Sarah looked at the girl beside her, whose eyes shone with newfound determination. The crowd was shifting now, not to run away, but to stay. In that moment, something beautiful bloomed, hope forged in unity. Hearts were pounding with brave conviction, but as the officers exchanged wary glances, preparing for what they might need to do, Sarah's mind raced. What would happen if they marched forward? Would they truly stand the ground? The air was thick with uncertainty, but somewhere in her chest, a flicker of possibility ignited. Would they become a force unstoppable, or would fear bring them down once and for all? With that burning question hanging in the atmosphere, Sarah raised her voice, feeling an exhilarating rush. Together. Who's with us? A deafening roar of support erupted from the crowd. Sarah's heart raced as a wave of energy surged through the people surrounding her, their faces lit with determination. It felt like sunlight breaking through a stormy sky. Together. Together. They chanted, a mantra echoing through the square, building in intensity with each repetition. The officers, caught off guard by the sudden swell of bravery, stiffened. Sarah could see the first cracks in their stoic front, and it ignited a flame of hope in her gut. "Where's your badge of honor?" shouted a man standing beside Dagny. "It's supposed to protect us." "Yeah. We're the ones who need protecting." Another voice chimed in, and the outrage rolled through the crowd like a palpable force. The initial warning from the officers seemed to fade into insignificance under the weight of their united voices. Sarah caught James's eye. They were on the edge of something monumental. She felt herself ride the momentum forward, with every chant lifting her gaze to the world beyond. But a small voice inside edged with doubt. What if this all came crashing down? "People. Listen." Dagny's voice cut through the clamor again as she waved her arms for attention. "This is not about just one person. This is about our rights, our lives, and our community." A few people turned, soaking in her words. Sarah could see tears glistening in the eyes of the girl beside her, who had found her voice amidst the fear. "I want my mom to come home safe," she yelled. The honesty hit harder than any baton could. The crowd echoed her sentiment. "Keep our people safe." They chanted, a chorus of protection brimming with resolve, but fear still hovered like a dark shadow. A tall officer took a step forward, crossing a line of uncertainty. "You have 5 minutes to disperse or be charged with obstruction," he warned, his voice gravelly and firm. "No!" shouted Sarah, her breath catching in her chest. "We want to be quiet. We want to run. We've stood by long enough." In front of her, people bobbed their heads, emboldened by her words. Each face was a mirror of bravery, reflecting her own fears and hopes, merging into a tapestry of defiance. Then came a sudden movement. A second row of officers advanced, flanking their initial group, ready to impose order. Sarah's heart raced. There was no turning back now. The air crackled with tension. "Stand strong." Dagny's call broke through the noise. "We have to hold firm. What if they charge at us?" Sarah whispered to James, her gut churning with dread. "We march," he replied, his voice steady. "We'll show them what real strength looks like." As the seconds trickled away, Sarah felt her nerves coiling tighter. "Do we really fight?" she thought, looking around at the dozens of determined faces. They were ready. One more time. Dagny roared, her spirit igniting a spark. "Together. Let us show them what we stand for. The truth will not be silenced." Together. They shouted, an exhilarating wave crashing forward, and just as they prepared to advance, something remarkable happened. The officers hesitated, their own fear creeping in. The crowd felt it too. But before anyone could take a step, a young boy's voice pierced through the clamor. "My dad says we can't back down. We need our voices to be heard." The moment hung in the air, electric and heavy. Would they stand and fight, or would they falter against the tide of authority? With hearts pounding, Sarah and the crowd shifted again, resolved yet uncertain. The real battle was about to begin, and she could feel it in her bones, a powerful storm brewing just beneath the surface. Would they take their next step? Would unity turn into unstoppable force, or would it all come crashing down around them? The stakes surged, tighter than ever. The air felt thick, electric with uncertainty. As the officers exchanged glances, Sarah sensed an opening. Her heart raced with the weight of the moment. This was an unscripted climax unfolding before them. She glanced at Dagny, who was glaring defiantly at the advancing line of officers, a figure of resilience. "Let us move," Dagny commanded, her voice a clarion call piercing through the tension. She began to push forward, and as if propelled by a shared energy, the crowd surged. Sarah grabbed James's arm, eyes wide with exhilaration and fear, then, with a mix of dread and exhilaration, they stepped forward as one. The officers, momentarily taken aback by the boldness, regained their composure quickly. One of them shouted, "Back away now, or we will take action." The threat was clear, but the crowd seemed unfazed. Sarah's pulse echoed in her ears. "What are we doing?" she thought. "We can't just bulldoze through." But then she felt a collective courage rising like a steady tide. "This is our space." A woman's voice rang out from the back. "We deserve to be heard." Murmurs of agreement rolled through the crowd, each voice building momentum. One by one, more people shouted their truths about fear, pain, and hope. "I want my son to come home safe," declared another parent, and the refrain began to weave tighter, each declaration a thread in a growing tapestry of courage. Sarah felt the electricity course through her, transforming doubt into an anthem of strength. The crowd was no longer just a group of individuals, they were a force. She remembered the girl's tears, the boy's unwavering belief. They had flipped a switch inside her. She could feel her own voice rising with the crowd, pushing away her fear. "We are stronger together. Together. Together." They cried again, a wave of defiance crashing against the line of officers. Their shouts bounced off the walls of nearby buildings, as if the very city itself was resonating in approval. Just then, a flash of light caught Sarah's eye. A camera. Someone was capturing their moment. What if this went viral? What if their voices echoed beyond this square? The idea sent a thrill of hope and power coursing through her, but a loud crack sent a shudder through Sarah. A flashbang soared above them, bursting in a shower of sparks and noise. Panic rippled through the crowd, and Sarah instinctively grabbed James's hand tight. They stumbled back, hearts racing as people began to scream and scatter. The collective bravery seemed to sway under the assault of chaos. "Stay together. We can't let fear divide us," Dagny shouted, regaining control. Her voice was an anchor, grounding them amidst the uncertainty. "Now." Sarah inhaled deeply, willing herself to remain steady. "We stand our ground. We can't let them break us." The officers moved closer, their shields gleaming under the chaotic din. But the crowd pulled together, forming a wall of hope against the tide of intimidation. Side by side, they lifted their voices higher, caught in a whirlwind of determination. "Keep moving forward," James encouraged, just loud enough for Sarah to hear above the noise, the bond between them strengthening in the face of adversity. The standoff crackled with energy. But where would this lead? As the seconds ticked by, a voice boomed over the loudspeaker, ordering them to disperse or face arrest. Sarah's heart raced. Would they go home? Or stand their ground in defiance? The pressure of the moment hung heavy. Every heartbeat felt monumental. And in the eye of that storm, Sarah sensed that the real fight was just beginning. What would happen next? Would fear win, or would the unity of their voices carve a path toward a new reality? The answer loomed just beyond grasp, waiting to be uncovered. The crowd held its breath, suspended in a moment that felt almost surreal. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest, an echo of the defiance around her. With hands clenched and teeth gritted, she felt the solidarity warming her skin, a fierce light against the coldness of fear. The officers, holding their ground, looked like grim sentinels. "Stay strong," Dagny called out, her voice rising above the fray. There was a fire in her eyes that spoke to the spirit of those gathered. "They can't silence us if we don't let them." James squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, his wide eyes reflecting the chaos and determination. "This is everything," he whispered, his voice a mixture of awe and fervor. Then another voice broke through, an older man standing tall near the front. "We are the many. Our voices matter. We are not just statistics. The energy shifted, a surge of power churning the air. More voices joined, each proclaiming their existence to the world, weaving a fabric of unity that defied the threats of authority. Sarah's mind raced. This was beyond anger, it was a collective heartbeat, thumping in rhythm. She felt a tear slip down her cheek, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of purpose. She turned to Dagny, eyes bright and wild. What if we really do this? Her voice trembled with a mix of disbelief and burgeoning hope. No what ifs, only what we will do. Dagny's fire was contagious, igniting the resolve in others around them. The crowd began chanting again, a fierce repetition that rattled through the chaos, but then, as suddenly as it had ignited, a wave of uncertainty swept through. The officers moved in unison, shields raised like barriers against the tide of emotions. Disperse immediately. You are ordered to leave. Their voices cut like knives, a sharp crack against the harmony of solidarity. With every second ticking away, doubt began to gnaw at the edges of Sarah's courage. Would it take only a spark to turn their peaceful protest into something far darker? She glanced at the faces surrounding her, the weary but determined mothers, the anxious teenagers, the elderly with years of wisdom etched into their lines. Each one was a piece of this fragile mosaic, and she felt her spirit rise again at the thought of losing it all. The chant swelled, but mingled with it was a palpable fear. Could they really stand their ground? What happens if we don't? She wondered, glancing at James. He met her gaze, his eyes steady, filled with an unspoken message of resilience. I want to leave. Not now. His voice was steady, resolve lining his features. In that moment, Sarah felt something shift deep within her. Suddenly, Dagny stepped closer to the front, her presence powerful. We stand for our truth. We will not back down. She raised her fist in the air, a beacon drawing the crowd into a spiraling wave of strength. They began to stomp their feet, a rhythmic pounding that echoed through the square and resonated in their chests. And then it happened, something shifted in the crowd. A flash of movement caught Sarah's eye as someone pushed through the throngs. It was a reporter, microphone in hand, eyes wide with urgency. I want to hear your story. She shouted, reaching for the front lines. A breath of hope surged. Sarah's heart raced as she shuffled forward, words bubbling in her throat. We are here for our families. We're fighting for our lives. But just as hope seemed on the brink, a roar erupted from the officers, their shields clashing together, an intimidating wall of authority. This is your final warning. Step back, or be arrested. The ultimatum hung in the air like a storm cloud, darkening their fragile awakening. Would they step back into the shadows, or press forward into the storm awaiting them? The weight of the moment pressed down, leaving only the echo of their collective courage. Together, with hearts pounding and voices raised, they had to decide. And as Sarah stood on the precipice of choice, she realized that in the shadows of uncertainty lay a sliver of hope waiting to be grasped. Would they seize it, or let it slip away? The tension in the air was palpable, and for a moment, everything was still. The crowd held its collective breath, each face reflecting determination and fear. Sarah felt the energy around her and knew they were standing on a precipice. Behind her, just moments ago, they had been strangers. Now, they were allies, united by a purpose so much bigger than any one of them. With a sudden push of bravery, she stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. We are not here to cause trouble. She shouted, her voice ringing out sharp and clear. We're here because we care about our community. We care about each other. We care about truth. The crowd responded with roars of agreement. James stood by her side, his presence a steady anchor. It's time to stop being afraid. This is our moment. He yelled, his voice booming above the chaos. A wave of energy rolled through the crowd, heightening their resolve. We won't back down. They shouted in unison, the chant rising like a chorus of hope, weaving through the night air like a melody. Just then, the anticipation hung thick as the reporter recognized the surge of passion. She stepped forward, camera rolling, microphone extended, capturing the essence of this stirring moment. Tell me, what do you want? She asked, her eyes scanning the crowd for answers. Sarah felt her pulse quicken as she took a deep breath. We want transparency. We want our voices heard. We demand respect. Her words struck a chord, igniting further shouts among the crowd. They were no longer just reacting, they were declaring. The confidence flared, and each person felt the shift as someone began to march forward, breaking the invisible barrier between them and the line of officers. I won't back down. Echoed another voice from the crowd. This is our home. It was a call that resonated with a truth they all felt. Then, unexpectedly, some of the crowd started stepping forward, standing firm against the advancing officers. Others rushed to follow suit, determined to stand together, shoulder to shoulder. Sarah glanced over at James, heart racing, but when she saw the fire in his eyes, she knew they were in this together. 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 Became the chant again, and the line of the law faltered just for a moment. Silence draped over the crowd as the officers glanced behind at their chief, who seemed uncertain now. A leader stepped forward from the crowd, a local business owner known for his influence. We will not be intimidated, he declared, strength radiating from him. This is a plea to uphold our rights, to listen to us. We are not a threat. Sarah's heart swelled. This was it. This is the heart of Maplewood speaking. She called out. Not a single person here is alone. Our love for this town and each other is stronger than any badge or weapon. The crowd echoed with fervor, their voices filling the night sky with unity and strength. Suddenly, the older officer's expression shifted, and he took a step back. It was as if he realized the balance of power had shifted. The voices melded into a deafening roar, drowning out his command to disperse. They weren't just a gathering, they were a movement. Give us the chance to talk. Someone shouted in the back. We deserve a voice. As the murmur grew into disbelief and anger toward those refusing to see them, Sarah saw a glimmer of hope. It wasn't just that they were protesting, they were fighting for every woman, child, and gentleman whose voices had been silenced. James stepped beside Sarah, lifting her chin with gentleness. Look at what we've built. What they see is not fear. It's strength. We cannot stop now. We won't stop until our truth is heard. One by one, more came forth, each sharing their stories and their love for the community, sparking an emotional ripple effect through the crowd. It became fiercely personal. James leaned closer to Sarah, whispering, "This is the change we've been waiting for." Yet from the back, a voice shouted with fierce clarity, "We demand accountability. We want to know why our trust has been betrayed." The anger in those words pierced the air, and everything changed. Dagny seized the moment, rising to the front with a fiery resolve. This is not just about one person or even just our town. This is about standing together for every community where silence has been the norm. The crowd erupted again, their demands rising above the tension. They were no longer afraid, they were emboldened by each other. As the energy pulsed through the gathering, Sarah felt something incredible gel within her. People were rising and taking a stand not just for Mrs. Henderson, but for every soul fighting for their happiness, their right to be heard, their peace of existence. She knew now that they were more than a community. They were a family. Love and solidarity unite us. Sarah screamed, her voice bold and powerful. We have the power to create a future where we all flourish. In a striking wave, the crowd echoed back, together. Together. Then, in an act of bravery that shifted everything, the officer in front stepped forward, his voice wavering, "If you're willing to talk, we can listen." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, but instead of retreating, they surged forward, a tide of humanity ready to speak their truth. Sarah exchanged a glance with James, pure joy and determination filling her heart. This is it. We're doing this. She said. The future felt brighter, and as voices joined into a symphony of demands for justice, clarity, and respect, hope soared. In that moment, Sarah realized they weren't just fighting for a cause, they were healing together, transforming pain into power. As the night unfolded and stories intertwined, they were not only bridging the divide between a single mother and a millionaire, but creating a stronger community that would stand tall, together. Their hearts beat in unison, a melody of resurgence rising, paving the way for change. Every pair of hands lifted, every tear shed, and every voice united had become a tapestry of resilience, sworn to rise against the odds. No matter what came next, they had ignited a flame that would not be extinguished. Hope was theirs to claim, and with that, Sarah closed her eyes in gratitude, breathing in deeply the promise of a new beginning, one where every smile illuminated the path forward, hand in hand. Now, dear viewer, don't let this moment pass you by. You need to subscribe now to catch more exclusive stories like this one. Leave a like right now because your support fuels this adventure. Comment with your feelings about this epic ending. How did it resonate with you? And for goodness sake, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of standing together, so don't wait not even one more second. Act now and join the family.